A compelling detective story, a cloak and dagger action, and a romantic drama, all these stories were taken from real life. The history of Kazakhstan is inseparable from the world history. Reflections on history, our version.
The road home. It is said that in the USA, in order to stimulate interest in history among pupils, they asked them the question, what kind of sandwich did Gavrilo Princip eat? He was only 19, had tuberculosis and was short-sighted. By chance, he dropped into a grocer's to have a snack. The sandwich he ate cost half the world. The arsenal in Vienna was a military complex of buildings in the past. Now there is a history museum in one of these buildings.
5 minutes before the assassination, the Archduke and his wife leaving the major house, and here they are still alive.
In the photo, they're approaching the car. At this moment in time, time had stopped. Millions of people were still living a normal life. They had a home and they were used to the road leading there. They had only a month left. General mobilization started in Budapest, where I lived. I had a higher education and had received military education and training while studying. So I was recruited as a lieutenant into the Army of the Reserve of the 10th Infantry Regiment. From Budapest, they went through Semipalatinsk, Ust-Kamenogorsk, Katon-Karagai, and then returned to Budapest. The way home took over 8 years. The monument has been here since then. This is the famous Austrian road connecting the modern Mara-Kakol district and Katon-Karagai district. It wasn't easy to return home. The distance was enormous. Illness and battle wounds also posed obstacles. Nevertheless, everybody wanted to return home. Their dreams of returning to their homeland came true as their second homeland. Chapter 1, Twist of Fate. Arnold Petras, who was a trade school graduate and officer in the Austro-Hungarian army, couldn't imagine that a few months later he would find himself in Asia. Everything could have easily happened differently. If the Archduke had not gone to hospital, if Gavrilo Princip had left the cafe a bit later, and if the driver hadn't lingered, there are so many chance conditions here. The heir to the Austrian throne, Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie, were being driven in a Grafenstift car through Sarajevo. The terrorists planned several ways to assassinate them. Escort officers were injured in the bomb explosion. The Archduke decided to visit them in hospital. However, nobody told the driver that the route had been changed. It seems that the driver pulled up the car in front of the grocer's where another terrorist was waiting in line for a sandwich. By chance, Gavrilo saw the Archduke's car and without hesitation shot him dead.
He hit his wife. She was hit in the stomach, she died at once. And the Archduke himself, he wanted to help his wife actually, and he was standing up and wanted to help his wife. And in this moment, Gavrilo Princip was shooting a second time, and that was the shot who killed the Archduke himself, as he was killed by a bullet which was going into his neck actually.
The fate of millions of people and the world map were dramatically changed by these two direct shots. People went to war as if it was a celebration. None of the opposing forces thought that they could be defeated. During the first months, when the command thought only about attacking, we didn't even have trenches. Often a company commander gave soldiers the eyes right command, as if they were on the parade ground. If during an attack the command take cover was given, soldiers tried to make a little parapet. You would immediately hear an officer shouting, "Are you afraid? Why are you trying to hide?" Later, many of these smiling soldiers were taken prisoner. They worked in carpentry in Petropavlovsk, built an irrigation canal in Kazalinsk and roads in Vienna. They could be quartered anywhere, including circuses and schools. Later, construction of concentration camps started. The largest one, having very harsh conditions, was in the Orenburg steppe. 17,000 prisoners died there from epidemics and hunger. However, conditions in various camps differed. Formerly, they were considered free people and were assigned a wage. According to international agreements, the prisoners were given the same food as their own soldiers. They were given a bit more than a kilogram of bread and the same amount of cereal, some tea and money for buying food. This money was enough to buy 250 grams of meat. However, these requirements were not fulfilled everywhere. Sometimes prisoners escaped from captivity. The fugitives were called pilots. Fake documents were sold in the city and even in camps. Here is an example of a common variant of escape. A person speaking Russian fluently put on a Russian uniform and pretended that he was escorting a group of prisoners of war. Their aim was to reach the border of Finland. It was where a group from Turkestan was detained. Fugitives also fled to other places. They fled to the Central Asian republics from which they went abroad, for example to Afghanistan or Iran. Arnold Petras was wounded and captured in the first months of the war. He didn't try to escape. He was in Samara hospital, then in Omsk camp, and after that in Ust-Kamenogorsk. Chapter 2. The Hard Way. In Ust-Kamenogorsk, I argued with an Austrian permanent officer about the pointlessness of the war and the future collapse of the Austro-Hungarian monarchy. I said that perhaps the monarchy would collapse soon. After this, the captured Austro-Hungarian officers considered me a traitor. This object has a direct connection with the prisoners. What is this connection? It's not only this thing, but also two other metal objects next to it. They're a metal dowel, a metal hook, and a metal nail. These things join the bridge beams together. The mountain road from the Buktarina River valley to the Markakol Lake is called the Austrian Road. People used this road for almost a century, but it's now almost completely ruined. The Serpentine Road is very difficult there. If you look at it from below, it seems that a road simply couldn't be there. It was built in impassable areas by mountain rivers and through cedar thickets. It was built so well that it still has importance. However, now it's in poor condition. There are impassable forests, mountain rivers, swamps, and two passes as high as 2,000 meters. This road was built using picks, spades, and trolleys. It isn't known how many people died here from the hard work and climate they weren't used to. Now, thanks only to the bushes growing there, we can say that there is something, but there are definitely some graves. The majority of the prisoners of war constructed communication lines. They built roads, did cartographic work, and explored new fields. They also worked in agriculture and other areas requiring physical labor. In 1915, monetary reward was assigned in order to encourage prisoners to work hard. The Austrians work in the city as tailors, orchestra musicians, stonemasons, and jewelers. Some of them are engaged in delicate work. They make frames and other things and deliver them to flats. Some of them work on an aeroplane. The aeroplane kindles great interest. Many people doubt that they'll be able to finish it successfully. Only soldiers were forced to work. Officers lived separately. Many of them rented flats. Moreover, they could choose a servant and a cook from their compatriots and hire them in order to eat the same way they ate at home. Officers received pensions, but the sum wasn't large. Soldiers were not provided with any money, as they were told to earn money in the city doing whatever they could. There is Angel's Look in Semipalatinsk. It costs a lot to paint a church, but the prisoners didn't ask for a lot of money. They were escorted to work, so these piercing eyes were painted under escort. Nikolsky Cathedral was painted by Austrian prisoners. At that time, about 4,000 prisoners lived in Semipalatinsk and its suburbs. They started leaving villages where they worked, hoping to return home soon, and their numbers in Semipalatinsk continued to increase. In camps, there were libraries and clubs for officers, and even portraits of the Kaiser hanging. They often walked around the city without an escort. They wore a white armband over their uniform. The population was quite friendly towards the prisoners. My grandfather, who was a war prisoner, recalled that the local people helped them. Both Kazakhs and Russians always gave them food. Often prisoners, being completely charmed by local girls, got married. Ivan Benedict, the person who installed radio connections in Riga, lived in Riga with his wife. He was one of Austro-Hungarians brought here. Marriage records contain the following information. Josef Karlovich Tartanatsky, 36 years old, an adherent of the Roman Catholic religion, Austrian citizen. Maria Yevgrafnova Chudanovsky, 36 years old, widow. One Slovak from Budapest, Arnold Petras, who had been sent to Semipalatinsk by that time, also found his love in this city. Chapter 3. Twist of Fate. There couldn't be a person who didn't understand that it was the time when the whole population had to protect their homeland. Nobody could save themselves unless they achieved success together. It's an announcement from distant the past. The time when personal salvation was impossible started immediately after the February Revolution. Our camp divided into two groups of people having opposite political opinions. In addition, the revolution gave us hope that the war would end soon, and we would return home. After the February events, we were allowed to take jobs in a private way and leave the camp during the daytime to go to the city. I managed to get a job as an accountant. The Brest Treaty signed in March 1918 provided for the release of prisoners of war, but the war finished in November, so the soldiers who returned home were sent to war again, which is why a lot of them didn't hurry home to their homeland. Moreover, it wasn't easy to go there from Siberia and Turkestan's hinterland. In addition, the civil war started after the revolt of the Czechoslovak Legion, the soldiers which were prisoners of war who had been sent home. According to some data, it was provoked by the Entente countries. The Legion received money from France, which supported Kolchak. The events which occurred during the Civil War were the logical conclusions of the events occurring during the First World War. Both the Red and White armies tried to attract the prisoners of war using money, propaganda and threats. The Czechs and Slovaks from the Red Army joined the battle. As for the counter-revolution, it was supported by other Czechs and Slovaks, the Legionnaires. Both sides lost soldiers, as they were either wounded or killed. Many people, including me, were captured again by counter-revolutionaries. I could choose either death or service in the legions. I can't say that I was afraid of death, but I loved life, people and my wife, who was expecting a child. In this way, Arnold, who was in the Red Army, joined the White Army, or rather, became a legionnaire. These are legion commanders, representatives of foreign diplomatic missions, and Kolchak's ministers after visiting an exhibition. This exhibition covered valuables of the gold reserve. After attending the exhibition, foreign representatives gathered in the courtyard, and this photo was taken. Arnold escaped from the Legion using the wagon in which Russia's gold reserve was being conveyed by legionnaires. Afterwards, he was captured again by Annenkov's regiment. He escaped again and worked as a bookkeeper at a lumber camp in the forest. At the same time, he was a member of a partisan detachment and attacked Kolchak's people. This is a quote from his work. "We requisitioned food from the rich and gave them receipts." After a raid, Kolchak's people sent cavalry against us. Those who were suspected of helping partisans were locked in a granary and the village was set on fire. Some women with children, including my wife and 3-year-old daughter, tried to escape and were shot at. When the overcrowded boat was crossing the river, my daughter fell into the water, but she was saved. Epilogue. All roads converge. The Civil War came to an end. The Soviet Republic, Germany and Austria signed another agreement. Those who survived finally went home. They could go by transport, mainly by train, free of charge until August 1922. This was the year when former officer of the Austrian army, Arnold Petras, returned home. However, a lot of his brothers-in-arms remained in Kazakhstan. Dozens, hundreds and thousands of soldiers are buried there. They didn't return home. They stayed there. According to the information about foreign citizens living in Ust-Kamenogorsk on March 1st, 1935, there were 2 Austrian citizens. 2 shots in Sarajevo resulted in the collapse of 4 empires: the Austrian Empire, Russia, Austro-Hungary, and Germany. Prisoners returned home to find that the world had changed. No one was waiting for them anymore. The road home was too long.